Well, good evening. I'm Rick Dancer. Welcome to Get Real with Rick Dancer. And tonight we're going to talk about business and COVID and the governor's restrictions and limitations and how those affect people. And we have someone sponsoring the show, but they just believe in it. And they said, I don't need any attention for this, Rick. I'll just sponsor the show, pay for it, and you go do it and bring your guests on and let's get this out here. So, my thing is we're all about, I want to provide a voice so people can hear other sides of what's going on. And this is a huge concerning thing for a lot of us here in Oregon. Small business, we feel like we're being overlooked and kind of ignored in this process. And the other morning I was listening to KPNW and Bill London, and I heard a story about a letter that someone from the Oregon State Chamber of Commerce wrote to the governor. And then I started doing some research and found out that there's a lot of other chambers involved with this. And it's something I think you had to hear. So we're going to bring on, this is JL Wilson. And JL, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Rick.
So tell people what you do, first of all.
Well, I own a public affairs firm in Salem. We represent a number of clients. We're involved in a lot of things, but for purposes of this interview, we are the legislative and political counsel for the Oregon State Chamber of Commerce. And so the OSCC uses us to really vet issues, let them know the kind of things that they need to be talking to their local business communities about, things that are coming from the state, and hopefully get business communities across the state involved on issues of statewide significance that really impact local business communities.
Now, this letter you wrote, JL, it's pretty raw. It's direct. I mean, I appreciate it. You were not mincing words, and it's apparent that you're really concerned about the way that this is being handled. Tell me, kind of give me the gist, and then I will ask you questions and stuff like that.
Sure, right. Yeah. So, I mean, what you're alluding to was basically an action alert, and most organizations have tools that allow members to communicate with their legislators or the governor's office or a regulatory agency, and it was just after a lot of thought and deliberation, but more than that, just experiencing the heartbreak and the helplessness around the state of people who just simply have felt completely forgotten in this. And I'm speaking specifically of your small business owners, and locally you most identify with your restaurants, but retail has reduced capacity. Your gyms can't open, your venues, you can't congregate there. And so there was I'm just heartsick over people that are completely forgotten, and they've just been told to fend for themselves, and they get the platitudes that we're all in this together, but no one's doing anything for them. So that it just hurts me deeply, and so I kind of took that to the board and just said I wasn't terribly excited about the response coming from the business community on this. And I think all of us wanted to play constructively with the governor's office. We've never been through this before. You don't really know when the point in time is that you just have to say enough. Right. And I think that we just arrived at that place. And so anyway, I can go through the contents because I'm guessing that's what you're interested in.
But also, I wanted to, from the very start, I was asking the question of local chambers and saying, does it concern you that I don't see anybody from the business community on the task force for the governor? It seemed like it was strictly medical folks and not a well-rounded group of people to say, how is this going to impact the entire community, not just going after COVID and medical? Because then people started forgetting that there's all kinds of forms of dying. And your business dying, your marriage dying, suicide, mental illness, there's kids not going to school. There's a lot of that people don't consider because it got pushed really quickly that it was about saving people from dying, which we all want to do. But it seems to me that the business community was not brought in on that.
I'm not sure that it would have mattered. I think that the viewpoint would have been represented maybe a little more, in those discussions, but I'm not sure the outcomes would have changed. I think that enough people that are close to the decision makers on this, and I'm just not sure it would have changed outcomes in terms of the policy.
So what's your points in the letter? I can ask you questions, or you can just give me, you know what you want to talk about, and I know what I want to talk about.
Well, I mean, we prefaced our kind of our request, just with 4 points that just felt, I'm just not sure how people could miss these points. And the first of which is that small business knows how to operate in this environment. I mean, they've taken the precautions. We're under a new regulatory regime with OSHA on how to deal with this. Small business people are the most creative, imaginative, industrious people I know. They know how to conduct business in this environment and keep people safe. And so, when we were talking about why small businesses were being closed, particularly when the OHA, the health authority, was blaming small gatherings, but I've heard no one blame small business or restaurants for the proliferation of the virus. So why they're paying the price right now, I don't know. Second,
also gymnasiums. I mean, gyms. There's
gyms,
not. You're not seeing numbers coming out where this is where people are being infected, and yet they are closed and going broke.
And I've just always felt it so strange that the presence of comorbidities has been a huge determining factor on whether people get through this okay. And what better place to get you in shape or resistant to those things than going to the gym. And so I just never really understood why you would preclude people from doing things that were actually would build up their immune system or their resistance to the virus. It just made no sense.
Well, then you're also go ahead. You're also closing small restaurants that are kind of more boutique restaurants. And then I look at fast food, which is, fine. They deserve to be open too, but you got 20 deep in the fast food line. So we need to be healthy, and we're allowing one thing and we're shutting down the other. And I think that's where people are having trouble with this. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because there's all sorts of places that people can still congregate and it's perfectly legal. But other places you can't. I think the one thing that my heart was most into was this notion that small business really deserves the same consideration that it feels like everybody else has gotten over this.
Like who?
Well, we've had enhanced unemployment benefits. The feds added $600 a week. The state added $300 for a period of time. The public sector is not missing paychecks. Your teachers are not missing paychecks. Your health officials that are making these decisions are not missing paychecks. And then I look at it on the private sector side. You're basically eliminating all small business competition for the large mega worldwide corporations that are probably never doing better than they are doing at this time because people don't have local small business alternatives. So the transfer of wealth during this period of time to me it's just mind blowing. And I can't believe, as a state, I thought we prided ourselves on being for small business, but this whole policy has really enriched the large companies at the expense of small business. So it just doesn't sit right.
So you say, JL, just a sec. You said in your letter, there was one place where you're saying that the governor has made every effort to keep public employees drawing full paychecks. Further, the shutdowns are sending our employees to a failed state unemployment system. And I'm not anti-public employees. My dad worked for the OEA, but we've got some of the most powerful unions that actually helped finance our governor's campaigns. They're big supporters, and they're not on the list, and small business is. That has to be. I don't think people think those things through all the way.
Well, I'm just saying that small business deserves equal consideration is all I'm saying. I don't begrudge anybody being taken care of during this time. I just what I'm really upset about is small business is basically been shut down because the state has every piece of leverage you could possibly have, whether it's your license to do business, your liquor license, your professional license. You're regulated in any number of ways by the state. The state has all the leverage, and you're basically being told you cannot have a livelihood. And on top of that, we're going to kick you to the curb, and you can figure out how to deal with it. and nobody else is being treated that way. And that's what's so upsetting.
I think when owning my own small business, I think it hasn't impacted me as much, but I've lost a lot of clients who were restaurants, and I watched them suffering and trying to do what I can to help them. But I think what people don't understand is, okay, you get the PPL, that's $1,200 or whatever you're worth, 10,000 or something like that. That goes like that, and then there's no more. And it's not like we're getting a paycheck. And I keep hearing everybody saying, we're in this together. Well, no, we're in this. But if you're still getting a paycheck, we're not in this together.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I kind of feel the same way, Rick. And which leads to another point in the letter, which is that the remedies for business at this point have been completely inadequate. I mean, completely inadequate. We're dribbling out, $20 million at a time. It gets subscribed in 15 minutes. It goes out in small chunks. And it's certainly not enough to keep cash flow or to keep payroll or to even pay basic expenses. And so the remedies, at least coming from the state, they're not even in the ballpark of the need for the people that the state says can't operate. And that just, I don't know. It's just not right.
JL, I have a business across the street from me here, and they're friends, and they got a grant for $20,000 to help keep their business open. Took the grant over to the landlord and handed it to him, and it's gone.
Yeah.
So and I remember when I first started talking about this early on, and people come on, so well, you can get your PPL, and it's like, but you're making up rules that there's no money for. And you're making restrictions that there's no, we're expecting the federal government to come in and pay for this, our decisions as a state, and the money's not there yet. So you're making decisions that are going to cost me.
And a $20,000 grant is large in terms of the grants that I've heard of. But yeah, it doesn't go far.
So
the final point that and you alluded to it, the kind of the humanitarian aspect of this that hurts very deeply is, you're basically asking small businesses to send their employees into an unemployment system that has failed up to this point. And so they could be earning their living, earning a paycheck, but instead you're basically saying, no, we're going to send you into the unemployment system, which has been a noted failure this year. I can't think of another thing that's made more headlines than the failure of the employment department. But as a policy, we're basically saying, if you work for a small business, that's where you need to go instead of your job. And I can't believe that.
So let me bring on somebody else here. This is Vonnie Mickelson, chamber director here in Springfield, but that's not why she's here today. Tell them what you're doing, who you represent today, Vonnie.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Rick. Well, Vonnie Mickelson, I am president and CEO of the Springfield Area Chamber of Commerce. Very proud to represent some 750 member employers across Lane County, including Eugene and Springfield. State Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors for going on 4 years, and had the pleasure of being board chair in 2020. So I've been working with my colleagues and peers across the state, and of course, on the good advice and counsel of our legislative team, council team, JL, and a couple of other folks. And I can't tell you that there has been a moment of pause where we haven't, in one way or another, had to look at either regulations coming down and trying to inform and influence a little bit better outcome, or advocating and pleading for dollars financial assistance. And we knew the federal packages were helpful. That helped carry, over the summer months. I think what needed to do is a great safety net. But now we're at the end of that, and we don't have a federal package really in sight. And quite frankly, the state hasn't come through, in my opinion, and evidenced by JL mentioned the $55 million that was awarded last month by the governor. Lane County got $3.7 million. We know that
$55 million.
Lane County was awarded, it was by per capita basis. So Lane County's portion was $3.7 million. So I checked with my county partners the other day and learned that 1,600 businesses applied for that. So do the simple math. If every single one of them were awarded anything, that's just a little over $2,000 each. we know that maybe a quarter of those are the only ones that are going to get. So best case scenario, as you just mentioned, maybe $20,000. Again, just enough to maybe cover costs overhead for a week or two. And it's really just not enough given the current circumstances, particularly of our hospitality and restaurant and lodging folks.
So you guys want money? I think in there I saw that for like money for lodging and hospitality, big time.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was part of the request, and what basically we wanted to be partners with the Restaurant and Lodging Association because they came out with a $75 million request for a hospitality relief fund, and the least we could do was partner with them on that, and so that was one of our specific requests.
How likely are you to get that?
Not likely.
Why?
Well, I don't think at this point the state feels like it has the money to pay those things. Now, you ask me whether the state has the money to pay those things. Of course, it's a matter of priority. But I think in terms of where the state has chosen to allocate money, they would say that, well, we need the federal government to come through with more relief money, then we could consider that type of relief package. But until then, I don't think that they feel like they can.
So why is small business ignored, or kind of left on its own to be like? I mean, I hear in the press conferences that, we all love to go to these restaurants, and when you take a fine dining restaurant and say you can do takeout only, who's going to pay $40 for a steak dinner and not have the atmosphere? That doesn't make sense to me. And I think people look at these tents that are set up and go, how is that any different than sitting inside in there? And I think that's where people are just like, what? This doesn't make any sense.
There's your train.
Yeah. Sorry, JL. I have my own personal train that comes by. So what would you, if you could sit down with the governor and her staff, and have a really serious, open conversation, what would you tell them that businesses in Oregon, small businesses in Oregon, are feeling?
I would say just flat out despair. I mean, it's getting to the point of desperation. They're told they're not what's the word? They're not relevant or essential. The government is basically saying you're not essential. What you do is not essential, and it's expendable because you're a known consequence of our strategy, and yet we're still going to pursue this strategy. And so I just think that there is enormous despair.
So my question kind of been weird. I don't know what you guys is doing, but so essential was kind of a weird thing too. And I'm just going to throw this out there because it's my show and you don't have to say anything. But I think essential, a restaurant's not essential, but the porn shop's still open. I mean, my wife and I drive by the other day on a street and we see all these porn shops open, and yet my gym can't be open and the restaurants can't be open. So
yeah. And Rick, back to your first question too, and to a small business and to a community that embraces, and truly local community members love that small business, the Main Street business, the local merchant that they go to, they know them, they know their family, their kids go to school together. They're essential. They're not only essential, they're in our DNA. They have been part of our community forever. So it goes beyond the technicality of the essential versus non-essential. They're community members. They're our families. We don't have a distinction between small businesses and the owners and the families that they support and the rest of our community. They're one and the same thing. And so what I would say to the governor is, and I listen closely to the messages and I read the press releases and I try to find a nugget of acknowledging the true value to local communities of their small business. And I still have hope that it might be there. And yet I think that we're missing it in the total picture, the total value, not just the economic value, but certainly the economic value. We're dismissing a huge portion of our economy if we dismiss the restaurant and the gym and the quote unquote non-essentials that are now being, told that they don't they don't need to be opened and for no reason other than we're just in this new rise and we need to all do our part. But like you said, we might all be in the same storm, but we're certainly in different boats. So we're not really all in it together until we're really all in it together. And we provide some acknowledgement of the true value to our local communities of every small business. And on the other side of that, put out some substantive measures of monetary relief when they are told that, not because they haven't been following the rules, they've certainly followed every single rule. We've watched them go over and beyond and come up with creative ways like JL mentioned to me. They're the most industrious of all. And they've done an incredible job the last 9 months. And so when the restaurant owner who doesn't have a place to put up a tent outside or can't afford it because the cash flow's not there, everything that they're getting is going towards maybe a lease and or cost of goods and or trying to keep that one last employee on so they don't have to put them on unemployment. They don't have any choices left. And really it's a sense of community pride too. And I don't think that we're calculating the total value of these businesses when we're talking about policy and how to manage through. Again, if you want to close them, okay, so there's a reason to close them, but what do you do for them as a result of that? That piece is there's a definite disconnect that we're appealing for at the state level.
So the letter that you wrote is similar to JL, but tell us who you just said to date, some local people that are on that, who have signed on to that letter.
Yeah, we have a appeal that we just published today. We sent it out to our Lane County delegation, the Oregon legislature, and the governor's office. And our partners in across Lane County, including the Eugene Chamber, the Florence Chamber of Commerce, and Travel Lane County, have all signed on. So all boards have endorsed the statement. Again, it lines up by and large, 90% of it exactly with, if probably nothing insubstantial. We just had some local numbers that we wanted to communicate, including those that I mentioned about the recent grant that the $3.7 million, how little that is going to cover the real need. But so yes, that's been issued to our representatives and our senators and the governor at the Oregon State Legislature. And I think I just saw an announcement that the governor is calling a special session before the end of the year with a proposal for another package, which I did not see any business assistance recognized.
JL, let me ask you this. On your letter, you also say that the OSCC also wants a moratorium on new or increased taxes and fees at the state and local level. Explain what you're talking about there, please.
Sure. Well, I mean, obvious, everybody got their property tax bill, and I'm sure everybody's property tax bill was 3% higher than it was the year before, regardless of your ability to pay for it. And that's a local example, but just a low-hanging fruit, example here in the state. I mean, the rate schedule is going to go up on your unemployment taxes. I mean, so COVID sends everybody, to the unemployment line because it just is a crush on our business economy. And are we going to get penalized for that because we couldn't keep our doors, open for all of our employees? And so all of us moving into 2021 are going to get experience rating increases, and we're going to get increases in the general basic rate schedule. And so that's just a small thing. It's your unemployment taxes, and it'll probably go up a point or two. And so, I mean, that's one. I know that the Restaurant Association is very concerned with the fees associated with the restaurant business, those are OLCC and other agencies. And so it's not like the appetite from the state has diminished in their desire for tax dollars. And so there's got to be some sensitivity of where we're at right now, that's just not real. And asking people to cough up more, especially if you're not going to pay any attention to us, in terms of remedies or helping to keep us whole. I mean, that's just not a thing. And yet, it just marches on. So we're intending to be as vigilant as we can be on that.
My business insurance went up oh God, I think it was over $1,500 a year. And it's attributed to everything going on. And every other business is experiencing that same thing. Nobody understands. I didn't understand when Carolyn Chambers at KEZI signed my paycheck, what it was like to own a business. And to own a business in Oregon is really, I'll quote the governor, really, really hard. I mean, it is really hard. And I think that we are overlooked in this whole thing. So what do you say to the people out there watching going, well, that's the cost, because you know what? People are dying. The numbers are going up. More people are getting sick, blah, and on and on. So businesses just have to suck it up. Small business has to suck it up because we can't have people getting in there, getting infected and getting sick.
Well, I would say two things. First of all, that's not the cost. I mean, the OHA in their information was such that they pointed the finger at other things other than the small business. Right. In terms of spread of the disease. So I would say, so what's the connection between small business and the proliferation of the virus? And I'm not sure that you can make that. And so that's one. The second thing is, the governor derives her emergency powers under ORS Chapter 401, which clearly has a takings provision in that chapter. And it basically says if you're going to essentially shut down commerce or take the property of someone, as you are, if you tell them they cannot operate, then you owe that person compensation. And that is spelled out expressly in that statute. That is where she derives the authority to do these shutdowns. That is what the Supreme Court validated under the challenge from the churches out in Eastern Oregon. And so there is a compensation requirement. And I think businesses should get very interested in exploring that.
So that I'll finish up here with you guys because I don't want to take up your whole evening, but this is very interesting to me. So that little clause, you're hearing people, and I'm not going to put you guys on the spot, but you're hearing people saying, we're just done. We're going to go back. We're going to open. I heard of 82 restaurants on the coast that are all considering going open, but they're going to go broke because of the fines and that kind of thing. But people are just at that place where it's like, what do we do? And I think every person on here watching is who supports what you're talking about is saying, how do we do what? Because I think all of us are just at this point, like, okay, so where's my voice? When do I get heard? What do I do so that somebody like rattle the cage to go, hello, I'm out here. You're killing me. And it doesn't seem like I matter. And other people are getting paid and I'm not. But hello, and it's just like a vacuum. It's like an echo chamber, and nothing's coming back to you except for, oh well, what do we do? What's this? What are active action steps that we can take to go so that if the governor's not listening, who will listen and be our voice for us?
Your statement there really resonates with me, Rick. I mean that was well articulated. My sense is, you've got to go. To me, you've got to go through your channels, and your channels right now include your elected officials. And I don't think you have a choice but to saber rattle in that respect. In terms of people are going to have to make their decisions about how they go from this point forward. I know that there have been folks locally in your area who've decided to open it, and I'm not here to endorse that. I'm just saying that you've got to do everything in your power to grab the attention of your elected officials that this strategy has a real cost, and to make them aware of that. And that's what you do in this system.
I'm not pushing you, but I'm saying I want the audience to understand, because I don't think people understand this. But in Oregon, there's a super majority, which means basically they don't have to listen to people who are not on their side or to agree with them because of the super majority we've allowed in Oregon. I think that's why we're sitting here, is because who is going to listen? The message, the popular message out there is we need to just keep shutting down. And now I'm hearing, on the radio today, I heard people saying that, some are saying, like, I don't know what they know, but they're saying, it could be summer or later. And I've got restaurants that are friends of mine who say January and February are your worst months, and they're barely hanging on now. So what is going to happen in January and February? We're going to lose more small businesses and community members. So the supermajority, how do we get these legislators to listen when I don't know why do we have a team? Are we on the team?
Well, I don't know that the supermajority. I don't know that the supermajority that you mentioned is quite the impediment that you might think. I still think that legislators, no matter where they come from, still want to reflect the will of their constituents, if their constituents are loud enough. I think most people now are afraid. It's an environment of fear.
Yeah.
It was, before 2020, I thought that there was great pride and great esteem for people who own their businesses, employed others. And now all of a sudden it's a bad thing, and you're shamed, and you're shamed into thinking you shouldn't have a voice, and you're so selfish if you want. And so I can't believe how much has changed in 12 months.
Yeah.
And so I still think the proper venue is to make noise with the people who represent you, and that's what you can do. That's what we're attempting to do in terms of what are the types of things that you can do to sort of change the decision calculus going forward. I think you have to put a price tag on it. I don't know that the government would make the same decision if they knew that making that decision would cost an arm and a leg going forward, or there was a real cost associated with it. So when I mention that ORS Chapter 401 has an express takings clause, I would expect that business might want to figure out what to do about that in terms of how to exercise their rights under that chapter. And so I'm giving strong hints about things.
I'll make that into less than a hint. So what he's saying is that there is this rule out there that says if you do this, you have to pay businesses for what they are losing. So if enough businesses went after that and said, okay, I want my share of that money, all of a sudden the government has to listen, because they're not going to have the money to be able to pay off to every single person out there who's going broke because of the decisions of people. So he gave you the number. There's something you can do concrete. We have to get beyond bitching. And I always tell my audience, if you're going to write a letter to people, be kind, be firm and kind. Don't be a wuss, and don't write all around the thing, but you be kind, but you be firm, and you let people know what you're talking about. But you've been handed something here today on the show that you could do constructively, that will get people to listen maybe a little bit better there.
I know that the restaurants are employing a litigation strategy locally. I know of at least one major law firm that is looking for businesses who have been shut down and are looking to explore this legal theory in the takings clause in this. All I'm saying is businesses should find each other and explore this. I'm not saying that a court will agree, because I simply don't know. No, but what I'm saying is you've got to change the calculus somehow. Otherwise, you're going to get run over this time, and you're going to get run over for every other pandemic that comes. I mean, this is all new to us, because I've never experienced this in my lifetime, but maybe. I'm pretty sure now I will experience this again in my professional life, given what I've seen now. And so I think that I think business needs to find a way to change the calculus. And to me, at least at this point, the calculus is changed when those decisions come with a cost.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot, JL, and you can just say never mind if you don't want to. But would you elaborate? What do you mean? Another pandemic, or you're not saying a pandemic, but now that this door's been opened, it probably is going to be like Pandora's box, really hard to shut that again.
I at first it felt like this was a really sort of a black swan event, and it might be, but now that I've seen this unfold, I'm really kind of curious what's to prevent this from happening again in 5 years, right, or 10 years. And I'm young enough to be that I'll still be professionally operating at that time. And so I'm really thinking, at this point, not just how to keep our business owners whole during this time, if it's possible, but how to make sure that businesses are factored into decisions also down the road. I think you've got to prepare for that.
Okay. You guys, thank you so much. I think in this day and age, you have to be pretty gutsy and to get out there, JL, and write something like that, which I don't find it taking a risk. I mean, it is, I guess, risky because people are so quick to jump on things, but man, you got guts, dude. And when I heard that on the radio, I was like, that's what people need to hear, because, and it's not to stir up a riot. It's to get people off their behinds and working together to come up with solutions instead of all of us sitting around going, well, what are we going to do now? I mean, you gave us some ideas. We can take those ideas and work with them. And then as a community, get together with other business leaders and your chambers. If you're not a member, I'm going to pitch them, become a member so you can have a force behind you, and they know how to go out and speak for you. Because we're not fighting. This isn't a fight. It may be a battle, but it's really speaking and using our voices to do something. And so I really appreciate, JL, what you did. And thank you for opening the door to that conversation. Bonnie, you always do that for us in Springfield. And
absolutely.
Well,
if I could just mention to your point, Rick, the Oregon State Chamber of Commerce does have some 84 chambers of commerce across the state who are members. And therefore, it's most likely of anyone viewing here that who is a, community member or small business owner, wherever they are, they're likely that their chamber is a member of the Oregon State Chamber. So I'd encourage them to reach out and see what kind of resources they have available, because you can be sure that the resources have been communicated and are available through, some 84 chambers across the state.
And how important is it for you to just within any organization, if you're in Lakeview and you belong to the chamber, to say, we're standing up for our business, to join into that voice, because the legislators, they do listen to a lot of people. When there's a bunch of people saying something, at some point you hope that they will listen.
Well, I think that what I've experienced, honestly, is when we come out strong and when we come out very clear, that it is for good reason. And our legislators do listen to organizations like the Chamber of Commerce. They're local, they're invested, their boards are local community members. Our board is 25 members strong, and we've got healthcare, we've got manufacturing, we've got restaurants, we've got the whole sector of our economy represented. So there's some validity behind, there's some credibility behind an full endorsement from that board of directors. And we don't do it like JL mentioned. Even at the Oregon State Chamber, we deliberated hard and strong and very purposefully around this before we unanimously approved as a board, support and everything, backing JL and the great effort that the messaging that he's putting forward. And quite honestly, for good reason. So I've spoken with a couple of my chamber peers across the state just today. They're working on, we're all right now, the last week especially, it seems like the desperation that we're hearing, we're getting calls from our local small businesses who have all they've been doing for the last 9 months is everything they possibly can think of to stay open, to follow the guidelines, to check the boxes on anything new that comes down, and a lot of it has. All they wanted to do is do the right thing. And now they're kind of feeling up against a wall.
Right.
And so we're taking those calls. So we're right there with them. And I guarantee you, any chamber professional that's doing this work right now is hearing from their members, and they're trying to do the best thing, but they really need, like you said, we need our business members to be willing to send us your input. We'll send it along if you're not comfortable, or best case scenario, reach out directly to your elected representative and tell them your story, in a couple paragraphs. Really, it doesn't have to be long and fancy.
All right. Bonnie, thank you. JL, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Rick.
You're a stud, man.
Well, just, the thing is, Rick, it's just like my heart just bleeds for these, they've just been forgotten, and everybody is higher on the priority queue than them. And whether it's the mega corporation to everybody who's drawing a paycheck, making decisions about whether their business should be able to operate or not.
It's horrible.
And I'm just crushed by this. It just hurts. And, this is not so much about, I just couldn't, when we talked about the chamber, I just like how I wouldn't be able to face our members or what, used to be our membership base and say, we didn't do anything for you.
Right.
Or we didn't. And I'm not even sure that our chamber members expect a result. I just think they expect somebody to speak for them. And so.
You did.
Yeah. I mean, we're trying.
All right. You guys, thank you so much for being here. And I'm going to do a little last minute thing and then we'll get out of here. But thank you both so much. That was awesome. So there you go. So what do you do with that? Go back and listen to what was said. And then instead of screaming and yelling and doing all that, make your voice heard. And stand up for your businesses. You know what I mean? Go do something for them. But also when you're in there, tell them how much you appreciate them, being there. Words can go a long way. And then write your legislator, whoever that is. And like Vonnie was saying, this doesn't have to be a book. In fact, if you write me a book, I'm not going to read it. This much is all they need. And you give your story. This is what's happening to me. This is how it feels to me. And then you put that out there, and you just have to keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And don't just make it so that JL and Vonnie and people like that are the ones doing all the messaging. They're opening a door, but we all have to walk through that door and be part of that solution. And that's kind of our job as being citizens here. Maybe that's a good thing we're learning out of this reaction to COVID, is that we can't just sit around and allow people to do things for us. We have to be part of that process. So I hope that helps. Sure helps me because I got a lot of friends. It's going to get a lot rougher if something doesn't change. When December ends, January is going to be hell for a lot of our people. So we need to be thinking about that. All right. I'm Rick Dancer. Thanks for joining us tonight. Tomorrow morning, 9:30, we're going to be down at there's going to be a convoy. A lot of our senior citizens who are living in retirement homes are not able to eat together. They're by themselves. One woman told a friend of mine that they're just waiting to die. So there's going to be a convoy of cars lit up with Sluggo and Santas and all kinds of stuff driving through a whole bunch of retirement homes around Eugene and Springfield tomorrow. And we're going to show you just a little bit of that, but that should give you a tiny bit of hope. And then coming up on Thursday night, we'll be in Coburg because the city of Coburg is trying to promote business, doing a super cool thing on Saturday, but we're going to tell you more about that on Thursday. But Saturday at 4:00, every business person is going to have a bell, and they're going to take 5 minutes of silence for small business, and then they're going to ring the bells. And then you're going to be able to go around and socially distance and wearing your mask, and you can go shopping in Coburg and experience a holiday thing right there. But it should be fairly emotional and kind of interesting and stuff like that. So I think that'll be really fun. And that is on Thursday at 4:30. And then tomorrow night, we're going to be announcing a contest we're going to do for small business. We're going to help small business, and we're going to help people out there who need help. So we're going to I have a client, Chris Dental, Family Dentistry. They're going to give away $1,000 worth of gift cards. So they're going to buy those gift cards from local restaurants. And then you're going to write in on that show and tell us who you think should have that card. And we're going to pick 10 winners the following Monday on the 21st. And so we're going to be helping the businesses, the restaurants, and we're also going to be helping people out there who could use $100 worth of food for fun. That's the community I live in. Yeah. And we are in this together. Good night.